Greetings and welcome to the Open-Minded Skeptic podcast. My name is Sharon Ann Rowland and I'm your host. Today we will be discussing on the Trump phenomenon, the withdrawal of the USA from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. On January the 23rd on 2017, we're going to talk about President Trump, who signed the memorandum that withdrew the United States from what we know in Australia as the TPP, but in long form is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, the TPP is a defunct proposed trade agreement between Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, Vietnam, and the United States that was supposed to be signed on the 4th of February 2016. The original TPP, there is now a cut-down version in place, which I believe has actually gone through without the US signing on, contained measures to lower both non-tariff and tariff barriers to trade, and to establish an investor-state dispute settlement, ISDS, mechanism. The U.S. International Trade Commission, the Peterson Institute for International Economics, the World Bank, interesting, and the Office of the Chief Economist at Global Affairs Canada found the final agreement would, if ratified, lead to net positive economic outcomes for all signatories. While an analysis using an unorthodox model by two Tufts University economists found the agreement would adversely affect the signatories. Now, obviously, the United States, Trump didn't want us in that. We didn't want the US in that because he had other tariff objectives, which he is currently portraying, and for good reason now. I think from the US perspective, he would have been, it was ridiculous to have ever contemplated signing into this personally. Bobby, considering how the US in the past 2 years has prospered by bringing back manufacturing industries and sourcing from within, do you think Trump did the right thing for the US by not signing the TPP?
I definitely do. There was a lot of people against the TPP, and that was one of Trump's campaign promises, and I was really glad to see he followed through on it, because he just looked at it and said, this is not a good deal for the U.S., and that I'd much rather make separate deals with these countries.
Yeah, and I agree. Unfortunately, Australia went and signed the cut-down version, so we're actually in the cut-down version of it. Every time I go to pick it up and have a closer look at it, I just get really upset. So I've stepped away from that. Amanda Jean, what do you think? Considering that the US in the past 2 years seems to have prospered amazingly well, did they do the right thing?
I do, and from that point of view, you see at the end of the day, Trump, he didn't appease the look, it's all well and good to go and say, oh, well, they're all signing something, I should sign it with yous. And considering that a lot of people look to America as an ally and all that sort of stuff and blah, 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 I think Trump really did do in that moment think about the US. He wasn't thinking about, okay, what's this going to do for my relationship between the US and Australia, or the US and this, or the US and that. He actually just went, okay. He looked at it as a business deal, because at the end of the day, he is a businessman, and he hasn't gotten where he's got to by being a crap businessman. He has really looked at it and gone, okay, if I'm treating America like a business, this is a crap deal. So no, I would rather go to these individual countries. I would rather get a better deal for both parties, a win-win between us, rather than doing a blanket across the board something. I think really he did, and I think he did it. I think he sort of, again, was able to take out the whole peer pressure thing and actually go, you know what, no, I don't think this is a good deal. This is what I want. This is what I need for my country, and I think he did it brilliantly. So I think he did do the right thing. I think he sort of really looked. Whereas, I mean, Australia at the moment seems to be really trying to keep up with the Joneses rather than, hang on a second, what is the right thing for Australia? They're doing it as, well, I want to keep up with the Joneses. Whereas Trump has been able to turn around and say, no, stuff the Joneses. I really want to do the right thing by my country and my business. You know what I mean? So
now, look,
I think he did the right thing.
I completely agree. And I also think he had in the front of his head what he was about to do with China, how he's taking them on and trying to not hobble them, but make them more of a partner than a takeover agent, which is what I think their agenda is. So, Bobby, Sheila, considering how the US in the past 2 years has prospered by bringing back manufacturing industries and sourcing from within, do you think Trump did the right thing for the US by not signing the TPP?
Absolutely. And I would agree with everything all of you, Bobby, Amanda, and yourself have said, Sharon, because Trump is a businessman. So he's also less likely to be swayed, if you like, by other people perhaps who've agreed to that in the first place.
Bobby, a lot of pressure's put on the so-called superpowers in our world to not think about their own countries, but to think about their country's effect on the other countries in the world. Now, do you think it is okay for a superpower to think about their own country first before their allies?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just like, you look out for your family first, and then if you can, you help other people, but primarily you're looking out for your family. And that's what I think Trump feels. I'll look out for America first, and then I'll help other people. We still are very charitable.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the key word, isn't it? Charity starts at home. That's what we say here in Australia. And then, although we don't practice a lot of that, I've noticed. Amanda Jean, do you think it's okay for a superpower like the US to think of their own country first before helping allies?
Absolutely. And I think it's that, it's always the case of, too, it'll always be I mean, you look at any sort of structure in the way of even society, and you will have those people saying, well, the rich people should pay more taxes because they earn more, but then the poor person goes, well, I don't want to pay any taxes because I don't earn enough. And a lot of this looks at from that thing of, well, okay, well, yeah, because you can afford it, you pay more tax. But that person's working just as hard to look after their own self. So the same thing comes with a superpower. It's all well and good to say, well, they're a superpower. They should be looking after us. They should be protecting us. They should be thinking of us first because we're this, and this, because we can't afford it, or we're not as strong as them. Yet they've been a non-superpower at one stage. They have been a poor country where they were starting out, and England or Spain were considered the superpowers. You know what I mean? So it's, at the moment, yes, the US is one of those superpowers, and I do believe that, yes, they need to start looking after their own first. Otherwise, they will end up back in the poo again, because they've sent all their charitable, manufacturing or their charitable things overseas. And of course, that's where you end up with other countries building, because they've got the monopoly, they've got the market, they've got the, you look at Australia now, and this is the way I look at it as well, is that, Australia is losing all their manufacturing and all their ability to build things in-house, which means there's jobs going, there's more, the unemployment is, or the employment possibility is not there because there's no longer the factories or things like that producing a product that is either, one, kept in-house to supply their own, or two, exportable overseas. We're now importing everything back in, which means we're no longer even a contender to become a superpower because we're giving all our power away to other countries to do it for us. Trump has been able to actually go, you know what, no, in order for us to maintain our status as a solid, strong country, we need to actually look after our own. We need to make sure that our people are producing their own stuff. We need to be self-sustainable. We need to be, able to produce our own goods and keep it in-house. And anything extra that we can manufacture and sell, then that's great. But first of all, we've got to look after our own. We've got to make sure our children are clothed, our children are fed, and it doesn't matter how old those children are, whether or not they're 5 or 105. They're still American children, and they need to be looked after. So, I think a superpower needs to look after. I think any country needs to look after their own first. Then, if they have the available resources, if they have the available funds that isn't going to put them into the red, and they want to share, then great. But first comes first. You really do. Each country needs to look after their own first, and then. It's a bit like on the airplane, apply your mask first and then help the passengers around you because you're no good on the floor if you passed out from lack of oxygen.
Exactly, sweetie. You know what, when you were talking then, I remembered that something that Trump said about 2 weeks ago where Google were kicking up a fuss about the tariffs. And he basically said, well, this is an organization that has outsourced everything to China. Yeah. And the same with Apple. Apple were kicking up a stink. And he said the same thing. He said, and who makes all their goods? China. Why don't they both their factories back into their own country and support the people? And I noticed that shut that discussion down very quickly on behalf of and Apple. And to be honest, it's made me view my iPhone purchases each year in a very different light now. And I've also removed Google from all of my computers. I had no idea Google was now established in China. Did you guys know that?
No. Yeah, I'd heard that they'd moved. I'd heard that they'd moved. Yeah.
I don't think anyone should be using Google now. I think personally we need to get rid of they're coding in. They've coded Google now, or the last release in China. So you know for a fact that there'll be some backdoor or something, in that now. It's not good. So Sheila, is it okay for a superpower to think about their own country before their allies?
Well, I'm going to agree with you guys. I think you have to. As Amanda Jean said, as you've said, as Bobby said, if you do not look after your own, how do you then look after other people? That whole thing of charity begins at home. It was in my mind when Amanda said it, or you said it, Shaman. We do have to be aware. And, if we look at Australia currently, there's so many strange things happening around here that we're not looking after our own, are we? No. I think, whether it be the US or another superpower, and again, it's like kids in the school playground, isn't it? The ones with the most front, if you like, or the most friends quite often want to bully the smaller ones into their way of doing things. So, again, if you're looking after your own and you're aware of what's going on, I think it's much better. And no, I didn't know about Google, Amanda, and Sharon, sorry. Not Amanda Jean. I've been using Google for years, so I might have to look at doing something else.
Yeah, I've tried a couple already, and they're all crap except for Google, to be honest. But I'm getting used to using. I've tried. There's another one I've downloaded, which if it's better, I'll send you a link to it.
Okay, thank you.
Bobby, do you believe, like the other signatory countries, that the original trade deal, not this cut-down version, would have served a geopolitical purpose, namely to reduce the signatories' dependence on Chinese trade and bring the signatories closer to the United States? So basically, yeah.
I'm sorry, was there more?
Well, no. Well, basically, I can probably shorten that a little bit. The original deal was sold to people that it would basically decrease the amount of trade with China and increase the US trade deals. But obviously, what Trump has done is said, no, I think I can get a better deal on my own, one-on-one. So, but do you believe that the original document, TVP, should have been signed, or do you think he did the right thing, I suppose? So it's kind of the same question that we answered before, but this is that I suppose the question I really wanted to ask there, now I've read it a second time, is do you think that was just the best deal that Barack Obama could get, but because he isn't a businessman? I suppose that's the real question I wanted to ask.
Well, that's a better question, because I think Barack Obama was going along with the idea of, all these countries are signing and we're going to do a regional deal. And Trump looked at it and said, no, this isn't a good deal, because anytime you make a deal among that many parties, it's like a lowest common denominator. You're compromising to get a deal everybody will accept, as opposed to just saying, I'll just make a separate deal with each of them, and then I can get the deal that's best for both of our countries.
Exactly. That's spot on. Do you agree with that, Amanda?
Yeah, I do, because I really think that with a lot of these deals, it is about, look, it's easier to get a bunch of people there going, okay, let's do this. Yeah, and they all go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, they're doing it, so I'll do it. You know what I mean? And so it's that, and for a lot of smaller countries, it means, oh, yeah, we're rubbing shoulders with the big wigs. Like I mean, look at Australia. We want to rub shoulders with the big guys. We don't want to be a little old, Nigel no friends out here. And so if we can rub shoulders with the big ones, especially someone like the States, yeah, we're in there with a chance. So we're happy to obligingly go along with these deals. Whereas, I think for a big superpower, it's like, well, okay, I'm going to get you all into a little bit of a tie or a bind or whatever. And guess what? At the end of the day, we're all in it together, but I'm looking after the little person and I'm making good relations and all that sort of stuff. Whereas I think I think that, for me, I think it's that case of where by Trumpy not doing that, I think what he's done is been able to actually, he's been able to get the best deal.
Yeah.
I think that's the...
I love your nickname, Trumpy. I think we should refer to him as Trumpy from this point forward. Sheila, so what do you think? Do you agree with Bobby?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I think you've got to look at the bigger picture, and it's not necessarily to everybody's benefit when you're combining such a large amount of different countries, different cultures, different ideas, because everyone's going to have their own perception of what that deal says, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because we all hear things and take things in on our own levels. So, what someone, and if we use Barack Obama, obviously he thought it was a good deal, but he wasn't a businessman, as you've already said. So his way of looking at it from the US's perspective would have been quite different than Donald Trump's.
I was a bit embarrassed when Trump pulled out, because and the next question is, should Australia and the other countries involved have behaved more diplomatically at that time? Because I thought they all acted like they didn't throw hissy fits, but they all were quite damning, and instead of being a little bit more diplomatic about the affair. I felt it was a little bit too dramatic on a number of parties' parts. What did you think, Amanda? Were you a bit embarrassed at that moment?
Well, I think it just showed you the real, personalities coming out, really. I mean, that was probably the most exciting thing to happen in Australian politics for a little while. It was like, wow, okay, you guys are all got your little, all your little girl panties on, and you all got them all bunched up, and you don't know what to do about it. Like, it's, so it was this whole thing of, again, it was such a strong ego response of, well, hang on a second, you're not playing our game anymore. And it was like, well, no, actually, I'm not. And it was almost, well, I mean, yes, you could say it was embarrassing, because it was like they were, you're sitting there going, wow, okay, here's a person who has actually obviously read the deal and gone, hang on, I don't like this deal. So, sorry, man, I'm out. I'm not playing the game. I don't want to, it's not my thing. But then to sort of, I mean, it got to the point of almost name calling, and you're just like, really? Like, do you boys want to go and have a hanky and cry in the corner? Like, that's how bad it got. Like, it was just like, wow.
I did. I thought that it was kind of like, I'm going to take my bat and ball and go home now.
Exactly.
And that was kind of my first inkling into how people react to him. And I was like, oh my God, I hope. But it wasn't just the Australians that did it. It was kind of like they could not believe they were absolutely aghast that he wasn't going to follow through on something Barack Obama had stamped, And it was kind of like, and I think he did it. He just went, look, no, it's not a good deal. We're not doing it. And that should have been enough. He's a new president. Yeah. It's fair enough. Like, they had a year of rorting the system of the US, Yeah. So they should be happy with just a year. Sheila, what do you think? Do you think we're a bad sports at that time?
Look, it's funny, because what you guys have been saying is exactly what's been in my mind. They all had their knickers in a knot, and in a lot of instances we could probably say they had egg on their faces because they didn't get what they thought they were going to get. So bad sportsmanship, basically.
Yeah. So, Bobby, in hindsight, with the truth of the tariffs now out in the open, why do you think Obama and the previous presidents allowed the US to be taken advantage of so badly? Why? What was going on? I mean, it can't just be that they didn't have any businessmen giving them advice, surely.
I'm sure they had advice, but I think maybe Obama and maybe some of the people around him were saying that it's important for us to forge a deal with all these countries and become part of the bloc as opposed to standing by ourselves. And, Trump just looked at it totally differently. He thought that, standing by ourselves is the best deal we can make.
Okay. Well, anything else anyone would like to say on that topic, or should we move on to Stormy?
Yeah, let's move on to Stormy. This is going good.
Bobby, is there anything else you'd like to say about the TPP, or are you happy to leave it there?
The only thing I, was going to say that I didn't sort of fit in was about the Google thing, because, basically the CEO of Google, he's doing the right thing because his responsibility is to his shareholders to return the most on their investment. And if he can get a better deal by producing it abroad, that's what he's going to do. Whereas Trump, he's got the ability to enforce tariffs. And so what he wants to do is say, well, if you do this, then we're going to put this kind of a tariff on it and basically make that deal no longer very good. And he's got the ability to do that, and he can basically stop these companies from going abroad.
Yeah, I completely agree. So do you think that's a bit naughty as well? It's kind of blackmail, isn't it, in a way?
I don't think so. I think, the tariffs were the original thing that, that presidents of countries used to do you know, they didn't even have taxes at that time. They got most of their money from tariffs.
That's true. That's true.
Well, that's all for our podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a positive review over on iTunes for the open-minded skeptic. My team and I look forward to entertaining you once again in our next podcast. To check when our next podcast is, simply head over to www.tomspod.com. That's www.tomspod.com.